You found the house. You made an offer. It got accepted. And then at 2 a.m., you wake up in a cold sweat thinking, what on earth did I just do? Buyer's remorse is real and it hits almost every home buyer at some point. But there is a big difference between having cold feet and actually wanting to torpedo the deal. If you're seriously considering walking away, you need to know exactly how much time you have left in your contract period before it turns into a legal and financial nightmare. So today we're breaking down the absolute point of no return when buying a house. We'll look at the exact stages of that real estate contract when you can walk away completely scot-free and the exact moment it becomes officially too late. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about the safest time to back out. From acceptance of your offer, the first step is usually paying earnest money or your non-refundable deposit if you'd offered any or the seller asked for some in the counteroffer. So this is due within 3 business days of acceptance in Arkansas, which does give you a few days to consider your decision, a couple nights to sleep on it. If you realize you made a mistake within that first 72 hours, you can generally walk away with 0 penalties and get every dime of your deposit or earnest money back because you essentially haven't paid it. But do treat this like a sprint because once this window closes, the exit doors start locking. I also want to point out that buyers are not the only ones who want to back out of accepted offers. We'd have plenty of sellers who want to change their minds after listing a property or actually accepting an offer. Maybe they find out they can't find a home to buy with the proceeds they're getting from a sale and can't qualify for a loan. Or maybe they've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and they don't want to think about moving anymore. Maybe they even pass away, unfortunately, and then they're not legally able to transfer the property without sufficient time and getting it through probate and things like that. And maybe a buyer can't wait. But both a seller and a buyer are locked in because it is a mutually binding agreement. Once you are past the initial review period, you paid that earnest money or deposit, your ability to back out safely depends entirely on how the offer was written and the contingencies in your offer. Think of those as your legal escape hatches built directly into your real estate contract. The 3 most common ones are going to be the inspection. If the home inspector finds a cracked foundation or a roof held together by duct tape, you can negotiate the repairs, ask for a price reduction, ask for a credit at closing, or walk away clean. That's one of the exceptions on earnest money. Now, the appraisal is oftentimes what you may be worried about, that it's actually going to appraise for what you've offered. So if it comes back lower than your offer amount, you do have the opportunity to renegotiate with the seller. You can even try to get a different appraiser out there, see if they come up with something different, or you can come up with a difference in cash if you're able to. But if you and the seller can't come to a negotiation with that appraisal amount, that's another reason to get back out of the deal. Now, most often when you say contingency, when I say contingency, the most common one is a buyer selling their home before being able to buy the house that they've made an offer on. So that's the most common contingency. So if their buyer falls through, if their inspection falls through for their buyer, if their appraisal doesn't come in, those would be all reasons for them to terminate on your offer if they made their offer contingent on that sale. So if you back out using one of these valid active contingencies, you're more than likely going to get your earnest money back, and more than likely no one can sue you. But everybody has their own decisions to make if they want to move forward with it or not. But the earnest money addendum specifically marks those paragraphs in the offer as reasons to get that money back and you able to terminate. But here's where things get dangerous. Contingencies do not last forever. The earnest money is 3 days. The inspection is 10 business days. The appraisal doesn't necessarily have a timeline. It just has to be before closing and enough time for it to go through underwriting. You do have 5 days to put in an application for a mortgage, but then you still have to go through the whole pre-approval process. The closing date is a specific date, as well as if you do a contingency on selling your home, that's going to be a specific date too. So there's either a date or amount of days for all the deadlines in the real estate contract. So once you pass those deadlines, you're going to sign something called a contingency removal. So the moment you sign that paperwork, you're effectively cutting the safety ropes. You are telling the seller, I am fully satisfied with the inspection, I'm fully satisfied with the appraisal, I have fully completely closed on my home, the bank's happy, and I'm locked in. So just keep in mind, if you try to back out after those contingencies have been removed, you're not really going to be able to do it safely. You're now entering the questionable breach of contract zone. So what actually happens if you decide to walk away after those contingency expired, especially if you signed off on that contingency removal? The most likely problem is going to be your earnest money would be get forfeited back to the seller. That's the good faith money you put into the extra account when you made your offer. And that was usually within 3 days. It's usually 1 to 3% of the purchase price. Usually with many offers, it's about $1,000. So that could be up to significantly more if you're in a higher price range, or for example, sometimes you're fighting against other offers, so you may offer more earnest money to show that you're more serious. But that just means more money you're gonna lose if you back out late because you change your mind. That seller keeps that deposit as compensation for the time their home was off the market, or maybe even doing the repairs that you asked them to do for your loan or for your comfort. For most people, walking away from thousands of dollars is painful enough to make them think twice, but unfortunately, it can get even worse. When you decide that you're going to go ahead and walk away from your contract, we're going to have you sign what's called a termination addendum. And so there's a couple choices in there. If you did pay earnest money, you have the option to say, I want my earnest money back, or you're going to say, oh, that's fine. I understand. I just made the seller wait and I didn't follow through on what I promised to do. I'll let them keep it. Or many times there's not any earnest money and you're just terminating your rights in the offer and that mutual agreement. So it's up to both the buyer and the seller to agree who gets the earnest money back. You can ask for it and the seller could disagree, and then it would go to arbitration, which is basically a court among peers. But once it gets through arbitration, if it's not a significant amount, everybody gets paid like lawyers, it may be gone, but then at least you've terminated your rights to the offer and you're no more legally obligated, and that should be the end of it, just the earnest money. If you think losing your deposit is the worst case scenario, brace yourself. In some real estate contracts, like in Arkansas, sellers have the right to sue you for what's called specific performance. This is a legal action where a judge literally orders you to fulfill the contract and buy the home. Now, ordinarily, I would say you can't force someone to buy a home. You can't wire their funds for them. You can't sign their mortgage documents. But a judge can do that. They can make them go through with it because they didn't have a reason to terminate and the seller wants to make them. Now, while specific performance lawsuits are rare because they're expensive and time consuming, sellers can also sue for actual damages. For example, if you back out illegally, seller has to put the house back on the market. If they sell it for $20,000 less than your agreement because it went back on the market, has a stigma around it, they can sue you to cover those differences, plus those repairs that you made them make that nobody else cares about. Plus they're gonna have legal fees and holding costs. But I also want to know that sellers need to remember when they are locked in also, and buyers can sue them for specific performance if they don't go through with selling. Now, whatever reason they consider to change their minds, oftentimes we see that when there's multiple offer situation and say they picked out the best offer, they start going through the process and then the buyer asks for a whole bunch of repairs and the seller's like, well, we got this guy over here. No, you have to deal with this offer first. Like, that offer isn't not there, and do what you would normally do. You can't just terminate that one because the buyer, this buyer asked for repairs, because you don't know if that buyer is going to ask for repairs. So you have to go through with the offer you've accepted. There could be other reasons that a seller would want to terminate, as I mentioned before, but it can be both sides. Sellers or buyers can sue for specific performance. It's not just about the earnest money. So when is it officially, legally, 100% too late to back out? There's two things that have to happen. The buyer has to pay and the deed has to be recorded. Usually that's on closing day, but depending on if the documents are mailed away or things like that. But up until that very moment, before you sit down at the table, you can technically still walk away. I mean, there's a difference between giving up your earnest money and buying a whole house that is not right for you, but it'll definitely cost you a deposit if you get all the way to the closing table. It can expose you to those legal risks. But what you sit down, sign the disclosure, sign the mortgage and the notes, and it's funded and it's in your name, that's pretty much game over. You can't back out. You own the house. At that point, your only way is to go ahead and list it for sale again and try to sell it and try to get someone else to buy it. Now, the exception to this, if you refinance your home and it's not like you're buying it from a seller, if you're refinancing it, then you do have a 3-day rescission, and I believe that also is true for timeshares. So you do have some days after that to think about and make sure that that's the right decision considering your interest rate and closing costs. But on any other sale, there's no days that you get to think about it. Once you're done at closing, it is yours. Buying a house is a massive commitment, and if the stress of the process is making you crazy and question your choices, it might just be that you haven't found a property that truly feels like a sanctuary. It is important to follow your gut feelings and your prayers, but it's also good to consider the advice of someone you trust. So if you want to see a market where buyers rarely get cold feet because the value and lifestyle are so incredible, you need to check out this video. It's a full breakdown on the perks of owning Arkansas Lakeview homes. We explore why these waterview properties are skyrocketing in demand, the unbelievable lifestyle perks they offer, and why they make for an incredible regret-free investment. Thanks for watching and have a blessed day.